Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a 2017 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics superhero team, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studio Motion Pictures, it is a sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014 and the 15th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Written and directed by James Gunn, the film stars an ensemble cast. In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the Guardians travel throughout the cosmos as they help Peter Quill learn more about his mysterious parentage. The film was officially announced at the 2014 San Diego Comic-Con International before the theatrical release of the first film, along with James Gunn's return from the first film, with the title of the sequel revealed a year later in June 2015. Principal photography began in February 2016 at the Pinewood Atlanta Studios in Fayette County, Georgia, with many crew changes from the first film due to other commitments. Filming concluded in June 2016. James Gunn chose to set the sequel shortly after the first film to explore the characters' new roles as the Guardians and to follow the storyline of Quill's father, established throughout the previous film. Kurt Russell was confirmed as Quill's father in July 2016, portraying Ego, a departure from Quill's comic book father. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 premiered in Tokyo on April 10, 2017 and was released in the United States on May 5, 2017 as part of Phase 3 of the MCU. It grossed more than $863 million worldwide, making it the 8th highest grossing film of 2017, while also outgrossing its predecessor. The film received praise for its visuals, direction, soundtrack, humor, and performances, though some critics deemed it inferior to the original. It received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the 90th Academy Awards. The cast includes Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, Star-Lord, a half-human, half-celestial leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, who was abducted from Earth as a child and raised by a group of alien thieves and smugglers called the Ravengers. Pratt said that Quill is now famous throughout the galaxy, having saved so many people. He feels like he's part of this group, a leader of this group. He's a little bit more responsible and trying to stay out of trouble, but not necessarily doing the best job. Pratt stated that working on the film forced him to come to terms with the death of his own father. Zoe Saldaña as Gamora, a member of the Guardians and an orphan from an alien world who seeks redemption for her past crimes. She was trained by Thanos to be his personal assassin. Saldaña described Gamora's role in the team as the voice of reason, saying she's surrounded by all these dudes who are so stupid half the time, and added that she is the mom of the group. Bautista as Drax the Destroyer, a member of the Guardians and a highly skilled warrior. Bautista waited for the final version of the script to not take away from the magic which he had felt had happened when he read the early drafts of the first film. He added that I wasn't crazy about my part in Volume 2 initially. I went in a different direction than what I thought that they would go with Drax. The part, though, later would click for Bautista after a table read with the other cast. Bautista called Drax more funny, driven than in the first film, having a sense of innocence and heartbreak about him. Vin Diesel as Baby Groot, a member of the Guardians who is a tree-like humanoid and accomplice of Rocket. The character began growing from a sapling at the end of the first film, with James Gunn intending for him to be fully grown by the sequel. Gunn eventually decided to keep him as Baby Groot, which was one of the reasons that the film set only a few months after the first. Bradley Cooper as Rocket, a member of the Guardians whose genetically engineered raccoon-based bounty hunter, mercenary and master of weapons and battle tactics. Sean Gunn once again served as the stand-in for the character during filming, with Cooper's performance also referenced. Sean Gunn said that Rocket had the same sort of crisis of faith that he had in the first film about whether or not he belongs in the family. Michael Rooker as Yondu, the blue-skinned buccaneer of the Ravengers, who is a fatherly figure to Quill and a member of the Guardians. He is also a former deputy to Aisha. Yondu has a larger head fin in the film to look closer to his comic book counterpart, and Rooker worked with the prosthetic department to add gaps to his prosthetic teeth, just like his real teeth, to aid him in whistling, as the character does. Rooker explained he wanted people to experience more in depth about what Yondu was thinking and how he was feeling, a more serious Yondu than from the first film. Rooker noted the complex relationship between Yondu and Quill, saying they are constantly at each other's throats, but Yondu truly cares about Quill. Karen Gillan as Nebula, an adopted daughter of Thanos, was raised with Gamora as sisters and reluctant member of the Guardians. Gillan stated that the film would further explore the sisterly relationship between Nebula and Gamora, including their backstory and what happened to these two girls growing up, and actually how awful it was for them and how it ruined their relationship. Pom Klementieff as Mantis, a member of the Guardians with empathetic powers who lives with Ego. Elizabeth Debicki as Aisha, a golden high priestess and the leader of the sovereign people, a genetically engineered race who are gold and perfect and wanting to be physically and mentally impeccable. Sylvester Stallone as Stakia Ogud, a high-ranking Ravager who holds a grudge against Yondu. And finally, Kurt Russell as Ego, an ancient celestial who is Quill's father. Pratt was the first to suggest to Gunn that he considered Russell for the role. He portrays an avatar of Ego who is more traditionally seen in the comics in the living planet form. Russell appreciated why he was wanted for the role after seeing Pratt's performance in the first film, feeling, "That's my kind of guy. I know where this kind of goof comes from." He added, "He brings the right things from the previous roles I connected the dots from, and there's some feelings I've done in the past." Ego replaces Quill's original comic book father, Jason, who was allowed to be used in the film for 20th Century Fox reached a deal with Marvel Studios to return the film rights of Ego for Changing Power set to a Negasonic teenage warhead, with whom Fox wanted to use in their 2016 release of Deadpool. Now, for me, once again, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the highlights within the whole MCU, and Volume 2 just lives up the same way that Volume 1 did. Its action-packed plot, dazzling visuals, and irreverent humor add up to the sequel as almost as fun, if not quite as thrillingly fresh as its predecessor. In saying that, though, I felt it just as good. Yes, the originality from the first one isn't quite here, but it loses nothing of its original charm and what made the first film work so well. Therefore, it sort of keeps track with the first film in its own way. What I love about these films is they don't take themselves too seriously. There's a nice fun tone to it. Also, the phenomenal soundtrack that James Gunn uses for these films. Like, for example, in this one, the use of the song Brandy, You're a Fine Girl by the band Looking Glass, particularly a way to describe Quill's childhood as he's growing up now, obviously reminiscing about his mother. I don't know, I just found it very poignant and well put together. Even the use of Electric-like Orchestra's Mr. Blue Sky is just perfectly intertwined within the film, and the soundtrack really just adds to the film. And even with all the silliness and fun aspects to the film, there is quite a serious underlying sadness to the character of Quill, particularly here now learning about his mother's early demise, and also this complicated relationship now he has with his father here, who really doesn't actually love him back. I also particularly love the 1980s references in this film, which just sort of adds to the sense of fun. And this film fits in as a nice contrast to some of the more heavier MCU movies. The cast are once again on point here, and their rapport is off the charts, and that's one reason that the Guardians of the Galaxy really works well, as that the cast just sort of play off each other so perfectly. I love the addition now of Kurt Russell here, and he just sort of adds a gravitas as an actor who's been around and weighs in with his comedic and action-based talents. And this is one thing I do love about the MCU, is you go from a very serious film like Captain America Civil War, which is perfect for all the dramatic reasons, to a film like this, which is great because it's fun and doesn't take itself too seriously. Now, as often the cliche within the film industry, sometimes sequels always tend to let you down, particularly from the original film being so good. But I feel Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 carries on in the tradition of the first one, and really just adds to this fantastic storyline created here by James Gunn. So yes, it may not be as fresh as the original one, but in the same breath, it loses none of its panache nor charm. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 gets a 9 out of 10.